Assalamualaikum, good morning and welcome to all our listeners who have logged on to listen to our talk this morning, webinar, which is titled The Malay Garden, Familiar Fragrances, Favoured Flavours. I'm Zahim Albakri, the Deputy President of Badan Warisan and Council Member. And today's talk will be delivered by Professor Emerita Dato Dr. Wazir Jahan Karim. She is a fifth-generation Jawi Peranakan from Penang. She pioneered Aslian research and was the first woman anthropologist to live with the Mahabatis tribe of Carey Island for 2 years, from the 1972 to 1974. From her years there, she published a work, Mahabatis Concepts of Living Things. Since then, she's published quite a number of articles and books. She's including Women in Developing Southeast Asia, The Global Nexus, Political Economies, Connectivity and the Social Sciences. Prof is now a life member of Clare Hall, Cambridge, and she continues to publish as an independent scholar and life member of Clare Hall, and has pioneered research into the culinary arts and the anthropology of food, including the conservation of Malay and Jawi Peranakan parody theatre, which I'm also fascinated to find out about. Maybe she'll come back and do another talk about that. She's now embarking on further research on Malay urban farming and is completing a book. It's almost finished, one last chapter apparently, co-authored with her son, Nurul Karim, entitled, the same title as today's talk, The Malay Garden and Table, Familiar Fragrances, Favoured Flavours. And let's introduce the professor now. Prof, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, Dato.
Hello, how are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's lovely having you here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so looking I'm sure our listeners are as well. I'm so looking forward to the talk this morning. It's two subjects which I, love. One subject particularly is the Malay food.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you.
And I know that you're focusing some part of it on ulam, and I'm very fascinated. I love sambal belacan and eating ulam. So I'm looking forward to this very much, and as I'm sure our listeners are as well. I'll pass it over to you, and we'll catch up a bit later for a question and answer session.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you again. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
So
over to you.
Thank you. A happy and peaceful Sunday to all of you listening in this morning. I'd like to thank the Malaysian Heritage Trust of Badan Warisan Malaysia and Think City Institute for inviting me to make this presentation on the Malay Garden. I just completed a book on the Malay Garden to Table with Chef Nurul Karim of Jari House, actually my son. And I'm happy to do a fleeting overview of the book for those of you who are interested. Now, generally, this talk refers to urban Malay women, including Peranakan Muslims, like the Jawi Peranakan, who have gardens or lawns or spaces to place pots to grow their herbal aromatics and flowering plants. So the scented gardens of Malay women. This may sound very grand, but actually it could be just a plot in the garden or a few pots and a space in the lawn. But whatever it is, we must remember it is the woman's domain. And this is where she spends her early mornings and evenings tampering with her plants. And, as the Ibu Rumah, this is where she actually treasures her fragrant flowers and herbs. Now, this is a special place in her life, the garden. And one of the most precious plants which she would grow would be the Jasmine, in Malay, the Malo or Malati. And traditionally, Malay women would wrap this in a sanggol. They would thread it and wrap it in a sanggol around their hair, or place it under the pillow before they sleep. The Arabian jasmine, of course, is the most popular, the most common in Malaysia. Over the last 4 decades or so, with Islamic revivalism, the hijab has taken over, and the sanggol has sort of virtually disappeared, except, of course, for the islands of Southeast Asia in Java, Lombok, Bali. Here you see the photo of a Javanese bride in her full classic headgear with strings of Arabian jasmine cascading down her shoulders. And on the right, you will see the Sirih Junjung, which is Malay, modern Malay. You would see jasmine flowers, orchids, and something new, baby's breath. But of course, although the Malay woman no longer wears a sanggol, I actually seldom hear the word sanggol now even, She would still treasure this flower as a potpourri or the bunga rampai. The jasmine would still be used for weddings and for room decorations like the bridal beds. And if you go throughout the whole of Southeast Asia, the jasmine is still the most popular flower to be used for all these functions. And of course, in India, the jasmine is like the superpower flower for weddings. And next we come to the bawa or the rose. Now the rose is always the center of admiration for friends. And this is where the Malay woman gets her status, because it's really hard to grow roses in the tropics and it attracts a lot of bugs. Now my late mom, Bismillah, who used to grow lots of orchids with my late father, hundreds of orchids actually, she would still have a little rose bush in the garden. And this is where she would cut a rose a day whenever it bloomed, put it in a fluted vase to scent the living room. And of course, Malay women would treasure the rose for their potpourri or their bunga rampai and for weddings. Now most of you would have heard of rose essence and rose water, which is very commonly used in Malay puddings and, desserts. And of course, for rice, like nasi biryani, and also like nasi minyak, you would use rose essence and rose water. Next is this very beautiful, undervalued flower, the gardenia, a flower for men but grown by women. Why I say it is for men? Because I remember my mom used to grow the gardenia for my father. In the post-colonial stage, the men would wear it in the label of the suit when they went out for formal dinners or functions. And my mom would always make sure that my father would have a fresh gardenia for one of these functions. And during the COVID lockdown, I noticed that the gardenia came back into fashion again. And I noticed that a lot of the younger members of our ulam club, introduced by our legendary Kul Salma Nasution, actually would make the gardenia into a tea, a fragrant tea. And this really fascinated me because women of my generation, I'm close to a generation above most of the members, would possibly not think of making the gardenia into a tea. But now we plant the gardenia, my sisters and I, we plant the gardenia all over our garden in memory of our beloved father who really loved this flower. Next, we have the Ylang and the champaka, kenanga or champaka. These are like two twin sisters. They're all seen together, these two beautiful flowers, with the most intoxicating scent on earth. And I have the Ylang in my garden, but of course not the champaka. It is a giant timber tree and it's hard to grow in a garden. Actually, to confess, I did have a champaka tree, but my husband chopped it down in favor of a rambutan tree, which was growing too close to my champaka. And I actually think I actually was quite mad with him for many, many months for this. But of course, the champaka is a very hard tree to handle, and not many women have this. But we do relish this flower, and it is made into essential oils for Malay, Arabian, and French perfumery. Next, we have this very sensuous, emotive flower, this bunga sundal malam, a very sad name the Malays gave to it. the night prostitute or the mistress of the night would be a kinder word for this extremely beautiful flower. And I would like to say that most of these fragrant flowers are now considered edible. And in our ulam club, most of the members would possibly start with a question. Oh, this flower is so pretty. Is it edible? Can I eat it? Can I make it into a tea? Could it be made into a soup for my mom and my kids? But you know, for a woman of my generation, looking at this Bunga Sundal Malam, the night prostitute, I would never think of cooking it or making it into a tea. It is a mystical, magical flower associated with the spirits of the forest and the orang bunyan, because this flower has a nocturnal scent which is released at night. And when this scent is released, this is when the orang bunyan or the human spirits would lure young women and children into the forest to sleep with them at night. So this flower will possibly not ever be eaten. Now I have a very nice video I took on the night of Chap Gomi of this beautiful flower in my garden in full bloom under the full moon, and I'd like to show it to you now. Here's the video. I swear I could hear the flowers breathe when they release the scent. And this exotic scent is something you can't forget. You know, it is like something between the jasmine and the gardenia in full force. So this is my Chap Gourmet gift for us that night. Well, there you are, the mistress of the night in full bloom, a blossoming maiden. Next, we come to the Malay table. So lots of people will want to know, do Malays really eat flowers? And I would like to say that of course they do, but the flowers they eat would be those associated with their ulam, the shoots, legumes, berries, and leaves, which are made into that ulam platter. And the senduduk, for example, which you see here, has wonderful blackberries. And this is also made into a paste, which can also be part of the ulam. And the Malays also eat all kinds of ginger flowers, like the turmeric flower and the kantan. And these are flowers which are known to rejuvenate the blood in the postpartum stage of childbirth, especially. So these flowers have now become celebrity flowers of celebrity chefs, and they're very expensive to buy. And if you can grow it in your garden, it'd be like a wonderful bonus. So the range of ulam and edible weeds is actually infinite in the Malay village. And in the urban landscape, we would have some of these young mango trees, maybe. We would have the belimbing. And the belimbing can be made into a wonderful relish with young mango and with tomatoes, with a bit of sugar and vinegar and chopped prawns. And it could be taken with this wonderful nasi ulam, which you see here on the right. And the nasi ulam is actually something which is very traditional in Malay, and also with the nyonyas. The nyonyas love the nasi ulam. And we need a minimum of 7 types of shoots to make a nasi ulam complete. And we must remember to mix it with hot white rice to bring out the full flavors of the nasi ulam, the herbal rice. So here you have a cooked meal, my garden cooked up, for our book. So this is where we taste the garden. So as part of my book, we had to come up with this for a whole morning. My son and I, and Noril, we did all these wonderful Malay dishes. We have the free-range eggs with belimbi and fish curry. The fish, of course, we got it from a local Malay fisherman. We didn't actually have it anywhere in our garden. So we have bamboo shoots and transparent noodles, of course, transparent noodles from the market. We have moringa leaves with sweet potato from the garden, blue lemoni rice with pea flower from our garden, stuffed mackerel, again from the Malay fisherman, with mango and lemon grass relish, and prawn paste sambal with wing beans, our famous kacang botol. We cooked up quite a meal, but of course, this meal would not be complete without our ulam basket. Now, ulam baskets have become very, very popular recently, even in Penang, Tanjung Bunga, where I live. So you can actually eat up this beautiful floral arrangement, a centerpiece, and to make it very lovely, you could combine the kokurma flowers, turmeric flowers, with kantan, and with young mungkudu or cashew nut flowers, and you get like a whole array of colors. And you can imagine, but by the end of your meal, this ulam basket would have gone, and it would be the most productive centerpiece you would have come across. Voila, now we have our famous sambal belacan, which is the most unifying factor in Malaysian culture, I would think. Every Malay, Chinese, or Indian relishes sambal belacan, which we take with our saltfish, young sliced cucumber, again with our wing beans, with all kinds of herbs. And here we have, mint, and we also have the king salad. And I think this is when you can actually experiment and be more creative. And when you chop up all this in your ulam, you chop it up fine and you mix it with sambal belacan and sugar and vinegar, you get like one of the most nicest karabus you can think of. This is what we got from a day's harvest during the COVID lockdown. In our Ulam Garden Club, every young family would come up with something like this, and they would proudly post it, in the chat. And this is what we in my family came up with, not just for our house, of course, to eat, but also for our restaurant, Jawi House. So here we have free-range eggs from our 3 hens. We have lemoni shoots and flowers. We have the cassava shoots, the pucuk ubi. We have the cassava rhizome, ubi kayu. The sweet leaf and chikoman is also from our garden. Pea flowers and lemongrass and serai. We also have the pandan and a host of other things. And this could last a family for like 2-3 days, and you just imagine it's all organic, it's fresh, and cooked from your own garden, your good earth. Next, we come to our small project, our permaculture project, where for every 2 weeks the bio waste from Jawi House is brought to our garden and is mixed with the eggshells of our free-range hens and with the droppings from our free-range hens. This is mixed with the leftover stems and our ulam and our cooked vegetables and the fallen leaves, and all made into a compost. If you come to my garden in Tanjung Bunga, you will see that all the compost heaps are actually those of the chef Noril, and all the beautiful fragrant flowers are mine. So we do have a shared landscape and a tapestry, intergenerational tapestry, where we learn to share a lot of our produce and our lives. And of course, I think the context of the COVID-19 lockdown, there's a COVID garden syndrome, and everyone has gone into this, modality of survival where we forget our cultural differences, and all of us Malaysians are growing and foraging as much as we can, save fresh produce from our gardens. and away, I think, from the aesthetic beauty of home decor and scent. But somewhere, I think there's still women and men who love the scent of flowers and the scent of a women. And here I like to pay tribute to our lovely hens and show you a video of them in the garden eating up and devouring our bunga telang, our pea flower. This is our hill slope where we actually, try to regenerate the soil with our compost. So the pea flowers have grown wild next to our banana trees and our cassava, and you can see the hens devouring our pea flower. Yeah. We just share, all of us just share. Chickens, hens, humans, we share everything. Actually, just to tell you the truth, our cock was attacked by a monitor lizard, very sadly, and met a very sudden death. So this is in honor of our cock, okay? So lastly, I'd like to actually share with you a famous Malay proverb on the scent of the jasmine and love. Seharumnya bunga melati, tidak sama seharumnya cintaku kepadamu. As fragrant as the jasmine is, it does not surpass the fragrance of my love for you. So thank you very much for listening. And do not forget to smell a rose or a jasmine in the mornings and evenings. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dato.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that lovely talk about the fragrances and the flavors of Malay Garden. Where we'll start with our question and answer session. We have a few questions which are we have here. Now, tell us a little bit about the community garden, a little bit more about the community garden you're involved with in Penang.
We actually involved in an ulam garden club, which was started by Kulsama Nasution, a very famous conservationist here. But in the garden club, there's this other very famous man, of course, Eric. We call him Eric the champ, Eric the hero. And he's got this amazing community garden in Sungai Ara, where many different families of the neighborhood and also NGOs and some elderly people, like in the Qigong Club, they have planted, squashes, tomatoes, legumes, beans. And this garden is open to everybody, and anyone can go and anyone can pluck anything they want, but with a certain amount of moderation and reservation, and bring their kids to enjoy it. And what I find so amazing about this neighborhood is that they actually bring their children in to share the activities, and the kids actually collect water with the help of their moms and their dads from the river, and they water the plants, they water the vegetables, and the old people are there helping them along. And on and off, Eric and his friends, they have their little tea parties, their little nyonya kuehs and mihun. And I think this is an amazing feat. And community gardens in Penang have taken off like in a storm. And we have another one in my neighborhood in Tanjung Bunga. It's also started by another famous professor, Professor Swan. And also here, it is also by the riverside, Sungai Klian. It hasn't taken off like in full force as the Sungai Ara, but it's got a lot of potential. Because Sungai Klian is one of the biggest, most beautiful rivers in this part of Penang. And of course, it's not grade A like Eric's river is, but our river will soon make it from grade B to grade A with the help of Professor Swan.
Well, I hope so, Prof. In fact, I know there are a lot of community gardens sprouting out all over the country, and in fact, Badan Warisan itself is planning to have we already have a heritage garden at our headquarters at 2 Jalan Stona, but we're thinking of expanding that into a community garden to provide
That's
similar
wonderful. And don't forget those scented flowers I talked about as well.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Not just edible, but
Yeah.
scented as well.
Edible, scented, edible, non-scented, but edible also to admire and to, smell. That's so therapeutic, actually. It brings so much happiness and joy just to smell a fragrant flower.
I've got some more questions here. Let's have a look. A question from Selena. One of this is, hello, Prof. How easy is it to plant the fragrant flowers in the garden? What kind of soil do they like? Shade? What kind of soil do they like? Shade?
Well, it depends on the flower. Like roses need more shade and very good soil, But the gardenia is a very hardy plant. It loves the full sunshine, but you also need to mix your soil, if it's laterite, with a lot of compost and good organic manure, like goat's manure or something like that. And then you can see it taking off really, really fast. I've got a few cuttings of gardenia I promised to some of my friends in the club for their moms, and I was so happy to hear that they wanted the gardenia for their moms, to enjoy in the garden. And I think for those people who are making them into teas, this is a whole new fabric, a whole new dimension of fragrant flowers as well. Yeah.
I have another question for you from Ivy. I have jasmines and gardenia in my garden. I'd like to eat them. How do I go about it? Do I pick the petals and steep in water?
Yes, you have to do like a infusion, put it in hot water, then close the cup or the jar and actually leave it for a few hours. So you can then add honey in it, or you can actually add a little bit of green tea if you like, or other types of teas like rose teas. And, you must actually drain it before you drink, of course. I've never, frankly, eaten a gardenia or a jasmine. So, I think this would be like a whole new dimension to fragrant flowers. Yeah.
There's another question. Is gardenia a native of Malaysia? The native plant of Malaysia?
It is really a very interesting question because the Malay word is bunga Cina. And I think they probably got this from maybe the ancient gardens, you would see like in Malacca and maybe in parts of Penang and maybe in parts of Southeast Asia. But I think it is pretty much native to Southeast Asia, I would think. Yeah.
Another question we have from Zainur. Is there a traditional way of extracting essential oil from flowers that's not too difficult?
Essential oil from flowers that are not?
Yes. Is there a traditional way of extracting essential oil from flowers?
Well, I'm not very familiar with essential oils, but I think there are many ways of extracting essential oils from flowers. And this is something you need to specialize in, I think. You can actually mix it with other types of oils, for example, like coconut oil. And you can actually infuse the flower and soak it with coconut oil and with other types of fragrant herbs, for example, like pandan. But in detail, essential oils are made in very specialized shops, by people who make perfumery. And the technique is also distillation, which is a very slow process, which I have not done before. But I think it is like the basic to all types of perfumery, to do essential oils and to combine different types of essential oils towards perfumery. I know that many young entrepreneurs are now starting to make their own oils from local flowers like gardenias and jasmine and orchids. And I'm looking forward to trying out these new perfumes that are coming into the local market.
Yes.
I'm not an expert on essential oil. I just know.
There's a question here from another question about flowers from Mas Jaliza. Have you come across bunga antoi? My paternal grandmother used to put it in her homemade coconut oil and gift the hair oil to my maternal grandmother. The flower is cream-colored, tiny petaled, small flower. I ask every flower stall owner at Pasar Tani, so far no luck. Have people heard about it?
Yes, it has appeared and surfaced in our garden club, Bunga Antoy. But actually, no one has actually managed to get hold of this plant. And I think with so much interest in it, it might surface. But there was something I saw similar to the Bunga Antoy when I was doing my research on Carey Island with the Orang Asli. And I think this flower was actually put in, the Orang Aslis wear flowers in the hair, but I haven't come across this with any Malay families. In Penang, definitely not. Possibly in the older areas in Perak or Pahang, we might get this. Yeah.
That's interesting. Bunga Antoy, I must look it up. We have a question about ulam. What are the essential, from Vanessa, what are the essential herbs and flowers in an ulam?
The kind of combinations one can make in an ulam is actually infinite. You can go to your garden and you can actually pluck any edible shoots, even the ambra, the condondong shoots. You can actually pluck young shoots of the guava or the mangosteen or the mango. And you can, of course, the essential ones would be like the ulam raja or the kusum, and the selase, pagaga, salasa, pagaga. All these would be the essential herbs for an ulam. And as long as you get 7 or more, that would be fine.
It has to be 7, does it? Is it?
7 is like the magic number. This is what we grew up with, and I think even the nyonyas are very particular about the numbers of shoots you can put in an ulam. Of course, the ulam gets more tasty when you pound salted fish in it, or dried shrimps, and even powder belacan or shrimp paste. Then it gets very tasty. I've seen modern ulam, enthusiasts who actually put in colored cabbage and even capsicums and things like that, or chilies, of course, green and red chilies. So yeah.
There's a question here about I guess people with this shrinking spaces in urban areas where people do not have the luxury of having their own garden, and they live in apartments and flats. So what kinds of plants would they be able to grow or in flats? Or
I think this is a really important question, and I believe that every apartment or flat would have a veranda, and it depends which side the veranda is facing. I think if there's a lot of morning sunlight coming in, herbal aromatics like lemongrass and pandan, and even ginger species would do very well there. But if the veranda was more secluded, I think other kind of plants like roses or orchids would do very well. I like to say that in the context of the verandas, I would like to see developers making these verandas bigger, or maybe in apartment blocks and flats, to actually have the developers, to insist that the developers have shared community spaces, on the ground floor for them to have their community gardens. And once these community gardens take off on the grounds of these apartment blocks and flats, the veranda space becomes less important, and the kids can actually have their potted plants there, the little cactus plants, and they can actually play there. So I would think that the Malaysian government should put this in full force, since there's a whole new powerful green movement taking place here. And the green people of Malaysia would like to see apartment landscapes, changing rapidly. And I think a lot of countries in the world like UK, Australia, New Zealand already have these shared spaces, these shared community gardens in these blocks. And I like to see Malaysia having this too.
That's an excellent idea. I don't know whether I'm not sure whether you answered this question. There is a question from Marion, which is which types of I've just lost it. Which types of herbs can grow on a south and east facing balcony? It receives full sun until about 2:30.
Both suns until 2:30. I would say maybe lemongrass and pandan would also do well, but the pandan tree that is grown there the pandan plant or bush must already be fairly mature before you transfer it to the veranda. Other than that, it would take it very well. And I think possibly you could actually grow certain types of ginger. Maybe
but she does ask an additional question, which is is turmeric easy to grow in pots?
Turmeric is very easy to grow in pots. I have turmeric grown in pots and also on the ground. In fact, if you have a very good compost soil or organic soil, everyone's buying a 6-in-1 and you mix it with a little bit of fine sand and compost, turmeric grows beautifully in big pots.
Excellent.
Yeah. I have a friend who grows, she even grows lengkuas, galangal in pots. Now, galangal would do very well in a garden which has morning and afternoon sun, or in a veranda which has morning and afternoon sun. And galangal can grow really big, Well, you can also grow cactus. Cactus is edible. Many types of cactus are edible. Aloe vera is very edible.
Yeah, we grow some in some planters here at my house. Aloe vera. Yeah. There's following on for that. There's another question. What kind of flowers or herbs would you recommend for a beginner to start planting?
For beginners?
Yes.
I'd
be interested in that. I don't have green fingers, but maybe I'll discover I do.
I would say flowers which are like associated with seeds. If you could get lots of seeds, maybe of like, the balsam, for example, that would be very easy to grow. And types of dahlias, chrysanthemums, those would be very easy to grow. If you can just scatter these and watch them grow.
That question was from Aina. I hope you.
Sorry?
That question was from one of our listeners called Aina. And there's another one, Professor, from Ida. What kind of herbs are not easy to plant? And is it true that daun kesum need to be planted in a pot without bottom holes?
Daun kesum has to be waterlogged. A bit like water hyacinth or the kangkong. I have planted kesum before, but I didn't put it in a proper place, and it dried up really fast. You got to have a waterlogged area for kesum, just like kangkong. What I find very hard to grow is actually like the not the fake dill, the original dill, herbs which are actually imported, like the rosemary. We have long discussions on rosemary bushes, why they die. And actually, one of those in our garden club said that it actually needs sun, but not direct sun. So a lot of us immediately put it in the shade. And different types of mint, for example, like lemon mint, it's really not that easy to grow. Or, certain types of lemon basil, for example. I just can't manage to grow it well. But I have, Thai basil, which grows into a big bush in my garden. And even some people even have problems with basil. It depends very much on our soil and how much the loving care we give to our herbs.
You mentioned,
Yeah.
was it lime mint? Was it
Lemon mint? Yeah.
lemon mint? Oh,
Yeah, I
think-
actually got the plant once from Sungai Buloh and it just died on me after 2-3 weeks, and I was really very upset because it's very hard to actually grow some of these more, uncommon types of mint.
Because I think we have a plant in there.
You do?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's doing quite well. So I must find out whether it is a lemon mint.
Wow.
We've got quite a lot of questions coming in. Yes, another one from Master Lisa. Professor, what about bunga tongkeng, a type of jasmine? We talk about it in our Facebook Edible Garden group.
Bunga tongkeng?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with this jasmine. There are like 15, 16 types of jasmine, right? Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, there are 15, 16 types of jasmine, and I have like 3 in my garden. They're not really like, not all of them are like even indigenous to Malaysia. So could she share with us maybe in a chat or share it with me, because I haven't really
what the plant is?
Yes.
Right. If you so Master Lisa, if you have a photograph of the bunga tongkeng, or
it's probably called by a different name here in Penang. Don't know. We have so many
that
types
might be
of
true.
jasmine.
That does happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's have a look for some more questions.
It's mostly women tuning in.
It's mostly women. Yes, it is. It looks like it from the question. The questions are mostly from women. From Suraya Emrus, can the flowers of jarum tujuh bilah be eaten? I've been tempted to mix them along with the telang flowers to beautify my nasi ulam.
I think it is edible, yeah. With bunga telang, yeah.
I think the flowers of jarum tujuh bilah.
The flowers of jarum tujuh bilah. Eaten with bunga telang, she said?
She said, can the flowers of jarum tujuh bilah be eaten? I've been tempted to mix them along with the telang flowers to beautify my nasi ulam.
I think it could be edible. See, the thing is, not all flowers taste nice. The bunga telang also doesn't really taste nice, but it is very pretty, in an ulam. Most of these flowers don't really taste that great, actually. Yeah.
They have more medicinal qualities, or is it the fragrance that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The jasmine doesn't really taste that nice. Yeah. The flowers that are quite tasty would be like the ginger flowers, I would think. Like the kantan and the flowers of the ginger, kunyit, turmeric. All types of turmeric flowers would be very tasty.
There's a question here from Rani. Good morning, Professor. Is the term Malay garden applicable for other peranakan gardens, such as Baba Nyonya, Jawi, and other peranakans in Malaysia?
Yes. Actually, when I used the word Malay, it was just an umbrella term to refer to all types of urban landscape gardens. And it would refer, I did mention earlier, to the Jawi Pekan, the Jawi Peranakan, to the Peranakan Cina, the Nyonya Baba groups, and to the Straits Muslims, because most of us, and also to the Chetty Peranakan, because most of us would share the same plants and flowers in our gardens. Yeah, this is a unifying factor about all the Peranakans. A lot of them share the same herbs and flowers. Yeah.
In the garden.
Yeah.
And another question from Thari. Is it correct to say Malays prefer scent and flavor over visual aesthetics in their garden design?
Well, for my generation, for the older generation, those who are above 50, I would say that the Malays really relish and treasure flowers for their scent. And, a lot of these scented flowers, like the gardenia and the mallow, they're just white. And they're just, compared to like the rose, compared to like hibiscus types, hybrid hibiscuses, they actually look quite plain, but these flowers are actually, the scent is actually so aromatic and so fragrant that, you know, women of my generation would actually love these flowers for the scent. But of course, there are many beautifully scented flowers, you know, which are also nice to look and nice to breathe in, you know, the scent. Like, for example, the Sundal Malam, for example, there's a very beautiful cluster of flowers. Even the Miami's jasmine, the Burmese jasmine, which is now so popular and cascades over everyone's porch, which comes in different clusters of pink, white, and red. That flower is really so beautiful to look at and to grow, but not to eat, because I've actually decorated that on my cakes, and I've actually crystallized that with sugar for some of my icing effects, and it's actually just looks very beautiful, but it doesn't really taste that nice. Yeah, roses taste very nice.
There's a question here from
sugar coated or not. Yeah.
Question here from Fahim. Prof, any edible tea which is cooling, as in blue pea, bunga telang lemonade?
Why don't you try lemuni? You know, Vitex nigundu. This is a very popular plant amongst the Peranakan Muslims, the Jawi Peranakan, because it is used as a tea for the afterbirth, and it is also mashed and cooked in rice. So you get the lemuni rice, the bluish purple rice, which is also looks really beautiful when it is cooked with bunga telang. This makes a lovely tea as well. You know, we could have that as a tea, and I think there's so many other types of teas which we could enjoy.
Could you repeat what was the name of the tea, the leaf you just mentioned?
Lemuni.
Lemuni.
There's actually also Vitex nigundu, you know, Vitex trifolia. There's so many types of Vitex. You know, the nonchi tea as well, which is made into a rice. The nonchi rice. What about the famous pandan tea, which is also really wonderful, and lemongrass tea. Lemongrass and pandan makes a beautiful tea together. And so you already have something so easy to get and something so refreshing to drink, and also very, very, you know, therapeutic as well. These teas, they have a calming effect.
We have a question from Christine Tan. Can every hibiscus be eaten?
I think the traditional hibiscuses, which are Malayan, there's so many new hybrid hibiscuses which are coming into the market in the nurseries. I'm not familiar with these hibiscuses. I think the important thing is that, and my son collects them, but the important thing is that we don't know whether these hibiscus, when you buy them, were actually treated with organic fertilizer or maybe with chemical fertilizers. And I would advise everyone not to eat any flower which is grown on chemical fertilizers. Yeah.
Very interesting, very useful tip for people.
Okay. Not to eat it raw, maybe to infuse it. Yeah.
All right.
But we got to be very careful with chemical fertilizers, I think. The trend now is organic and to make your own fertilizers. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
There's a question from Ahmad Nur Fitri. Does Prof take in apprentices?
Oh, actually, our restaurant, Jawi House Cafe Gallery, has taken in apprentices before, but these are like master's students who want to spend some time with us, or diploma students, and also students who come for a day or two to actually like interview us on Jawi Peranakan cuisine. Because Jawi Peranakan cuisine is very unique to Malaysia, and we are the first restaurant in Malaysia to actually serve Jawi Peranakan food. So we get a lot of students from culinary art schools who come to interview Chef Nurel. And me, actually, I run away from them because sometimes it's an avalanche from them, and I pass them on to Nurul. Nurul has to cope with a lot of these students who come. But they can come on just for a couple of hours and have a drink and talk to Nurul about Jawi Peranakan food. But a lot of the food which we actually cook now, the herbs in Jawi House are all organic from our garden. So that could be another new trend. Jawi Peranakan food, which is organic and which is really very easy to grow in your own garden as well.
Would you say how much percentage of the products in the restaurant are organically grown?
I would say most of the local herbs we have are organically grown, and the local vegetables. Of course, there's certain vegetables which we avoid now. We don't buy, like French beans, because of the packaging, and we don't buy many imported types of tomatoes as well. We are outsourcing most of our products from farms. Actually, there are families which have farms in Balik Pulau, and they actually call us and contact us when they have extra beans or legumes, or when they have jackfruits or chiku for us to put in our salads or to make in our curry. Most of the Malay food, which is like cooked with coconut milk, like our jackfruit and our, pucuk ubi kayu, for example, our cassava, our lemoni, that's all organic from our garden. Yeah.
Excellent. I think there's a question here about your book and when will it be available to...
we're just putting the...
That question was from Singapore, by the way.
We're putting the finishing touches to it. And hopefully when we get a publisher, a firm publisher, because there's been lots of queries and interest, but we also want a publisher which can actually circulate the book very well and actually circulate it at a moderate price in Malaysia for young farmers. Farmers, a term invented by Eric of Sungai Ara. We want young farmers to actually buy this book. So we would like the price to be affordable. So we're actually still looking for this. We might make it into an ebook as well and publish and print as according to demand. So it should be out like maybe less than 5 months, I would think. Yeah.
There's another question.
Those are a lot of questions.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions. And there's one more from Murev. Salam. Can bunga akar dani or Serangoon creepers flowers be eaten as ulam?
Not so tasty, but very pretty if you put it on top of the ulam. If you just scatter it about. I have done it actually. It doesn't taste that great, but it looks beautiful. It can be eaten. It's edible. Yeah.
There's a comment from Christine. I think it was response to your suggestion of having the shared spaces for community spaces in condos and apartment blocks. So she said, from Christine, sadly, new developers concrete front gardens in PJ. It is a fashion. It should be forbidden by law.
Yes, we must protest against that. And there must be a movement to prevent this and to actually talk to the city council not to pass these plans. They have to go to DBKL, they have to go to the Penang City Council. Why are the councils allowing this? The green movement in Malaysia, in the cities, is so powerful. I mean, there's some clubs which have like 60 to 70,000 members. We can start a green party and actually challenge existing governments that can, pass these kind of plans. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
That's my statement for the week.
I think a lot of people will vote for you if you started a green party.
No, we want Eric to start it, and people, all the enthusiasts of the fun fairs, cool summer. I'm a bit too old, but the next generation, the younger ones, they suddenly like marching forward.
I think
Penang is amazing. I love Penang for this spirit decor, this camaraderie, amongst all ethnic groups and all nations together as one in our gardens.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love that. There's one question here, which from Sharina. Could you share with us some tips on how do you keep yourself motivated and productive amidst all the challenges? Thanks for the inspiration, Prof.
Thank you so much, dear. Actually, I don't know what keeps me going. It's actually this, because each time I feel like I want to retire and just enjoy my garden, a whole new issue crops up. For example, like our poison rivers and our poison, gardens, and also, contaminated seas, and, our poor fishermen being, marginalized, resettled. And for me, my heart and soul is with the Orang Asli, whom I've lived with for like decades and decades, and I see their forests shrinking and getting smaller, and I see them getting more and more worried and concerned, and going back again to the songs of the past, the songs of the children, to try and create this kind of rebirth in the environment, to create a notion of cyclical time, that time doesn't move on towards industrialization and towards disaster. Time moves to infinity, to beauty, to holism, to happiness. And this is what I like to see. And when things go wrong and buckle under your feet, you feel you have to do something. And a lot of us are like that. We're still trying to conserve not just our buildings, our environment, our lifestyles, our livelihood, and the beautiful Malaysian spirit we shared before, the spirit of camaraderie and togetherness and cohesion.
Well, thank you very much, Professor. I think that's a very good note to end on. I think we've
thank you very much, Dato.
We've reached almost an hour. I think there's still some more questions coming in, but we can collect them and pass them on to you. But I think thank you so much for your talk this morning.
You're
and we're looking
welcome.
forward to. There was one question about where would your restaurant be? The restaurant be in Penang? Someone wants to do a pit stop.
Oh, it's on Armenian Street, number 85 Armenian Street.
85.
Do look us up. Yeah, we'd be very happy to meet you and share our experiences of Jawi product food and holistic foods with you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Give the talk.
Have a beautiful Sunday.
Yes, you too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Well, we've got 76 listeners left. I hope you enjoyed that hour we spent with Professor Emerita Dato Dr. Wazir. If any of you, I'm not sure if everyone's members here, but of Badan Warisan, but if you're not, if you look at the slide that's being shown now, you can look up at our various social media pages and find out more information about that. There's also, I think, a file that's being delivered to the chat room, which you can download, which will give more information about our different membership programs. And also, if you would like to donate to Badan Warisan, we are a registered charity. We survive on the kindness of private individuals and corporations. And the last year has been particularly difficult to raise funds. We haven't had the opportunity to, for various reasons, and which I'm sure you're all aware of. So if you'd like to donate, and please do, the information is available on the slide and also in the file that you can download from the chat room. So with that, I'd like to end today's session and thank you very much to Think City for helping us put up this webinar today. They've been very useful and very helpful. And I will end there. Thank you very much. And hope to see you at our next talk. Or hear you, maybe not. See you. Thank you. Take care.